All right, ladies and gentlemen, did you mean MrSotko here? Well, it's very unfortunate that I'm not as popular as a sock. But you know what? I'm pretty confident that I'm getting there. And sooner or later, MrSotko, I will surpass you, and YouTube will take that away, and it'll just be me when you type in my name. But for now, we got some news for you. We got some interesting things. Bitcoin has breached $10,000 in some exchanges. So we are breaking that price sooner or later here in traditional exchanges. So mostly the Korean exchanges typically value their coins a bit higher, and we have seen some prices in the 10,000 plus on some of those exchanges. So here we have Bitcoin. You can see a little over 10,000 on a few of these exchanges, but for the most part, the main exchanges we have just close to 10,000. So on Binance and Bitfinex and GDAX, things like that. So we are getting pretty close to being over 10,000 again. So all eyes are on the markets this week as they consolidate a rally to levels not seen since early March, with Ethereum, Bitcoin leading the way as data from Coin360 shows. So yeah, we haven't seen it since March, and then before that, it was a little while before that, and so on and so on. So this is like the fourth or fifth time, at least, that Bitcoin will be passing $10,000, but all said and good. So Bitcoin has been tantalizingly close to the 10,000 threshold, trading at 99.42 to press time at as high as 99.91 over the 24-hour period. Although Joseph Young has pointed out that looking beyond the global markets as average, Bitcoin has in fact already broken through 10,000 on some Asian markets. So Ethereum at 823 and going up as well. Even unfortunately, Bitcoin Cash is on its way up as well. So back to the charts of all the coins. We can see some pretty good growth. So Fusion is way up today. Bitcoin Cash is probably being pumped as well as usual. So everything is up pretty well. Bitcoin Cash unnecessarily high. It's always the case. But everything looking pretty good. So losers of the day, Bitcoin Private as usual, still tanking hard. Which, I'm not really surprised at that. I made a video a good few videos back. Is Bitcoin Private really just a pump and dump, or was it actually growing in value? Because it's been pumped and dumped and pumped and dumped so many times, which is very unusual for coins. Usually it's just once and done. However, Bitcoin Private seems to like to get around the block, if you will, and is now tanking super hard. Ontology is way down as well, but that's not surprising because it has risen so sharply in this year that I'm not really surprised to see any kind of temporary downcline. So here's another story. This is very interesting and a little bit sad, but a Bitcoin millionaire kills himself after having 280,000 stolen from his flat days after showing off bundles of cash on social media. Again, this is pretty sad, and I really don't like to talk about it, but it is an interesting news article, and there are some lessons to learn from it. So that's why I'm not really going to put it in the title of my video, but rather just show it as a news article. But you get what I'm trying. I'm trying to save a little face here. So a Bitcoin trader who was left penniless after robbers raided his home and stole 280,000 in profit has been found dead in an apparent suicide. So blogger Pavel Nyashin, I'm not sure, 23, had reportedly posted videos on the internet showing piles of cash on the internet he had made while revealing his address. So just I don't understand why that would happen. So Bitcoin millionaire Pavel Nyashin had paraded his cash on the internet, tempting cruel villains to come and rob him. So he's holding at least, I don't know, that looks like 100 grand, maybe even more, who knows, and posting it on social media. And so it's just a terrible idea to begin with. So the robbery took place at his flat just outside St. Petersburg in January. His heartbroken mum said a large amount of stolen cash belonged to potential Bitcoin investors and he was unable to pay them back. So the cottage where he was staying was raided by a gang dressed in Santa Claus costumes who stole 20 million in rubles and 70,000 in cash. They also bagged a number of iPhone X handsets as well as beating him up. So yes, apparently they did beat him up. He is a little jacked up looking. So Well, we'll read the rest of the article here. So, I mean, Pavel, who blogged about cryptocurrency as well as providing a consultancy service for potential investors, became depressed after the robbery in January. Police say there was no sign of anyone else being involved in his death. It is not known if the gang who robbed him was ever caught. Although this was pretty recent, so I would suspect not just yet. So there's a lot of things wrong with this. I mean, first of all, like parading that much cash on social media, then revealing your address is pretty bad. So first of all, don't do that. Never tell anybody how much like exactly you have. It's just kind of a little. It's just asking for trouble, I suppose. I mean, nobody should really do that to you just because you are flashing around money. But we do live on planet Earth at the same time, so you have to be realistic about it. Another thing, you know, what I find strange, it says his flat just outside St. Petersburg, and then it says the cottage where he was staying. So which one is it? So a flat, you know, I'm not particularly well versed in European lingo, but a flat is typically you know, the European version, the British version of saying apartment. So in America, we just say it's an apartment. In Britain, you would say, you know, or other parts of the world, you might say flat. So if he was in a flat, that's kind of different. But now he's in a cottage where he had posted his address. So in a cottage, that's even worse. Here's the thing, though. If you're a Bitcoin millionaire, if you have $1 million or something in Bitcoin, you know, and you're doing quite well, you really shouldn't live. And this picture is like kind of haunting me. So you really shouldn't live in a place that you can easily be robbed. I mean, you should live in some kind of like gated community, maybe, at the very least. So the thing is, I get that you could still, you know, maybe hop the fence in a gated community. You could still be robbed. It's not like you're immune, but it's at least a good bet. You know, a lot of the times they have security. They might get caught. There might be security cameras or something like that. At the very least, in a gated community. But if he's just out in a cottage somewhere in the middle of nowhere, that's asking for trouble. You know, and likely, so if it's in St. Petersburg, he's in Russia, so likely he can't, you know, be a gun owner. I'm not really sure the gun ownership in Russia. I think you have like shotguns and things like that. I'm not sure, but either way, he should have been ready for such a thing. And I'm not saying, you know, just because, again, you know, just because you flash money or something like that doesn't mean you should be robbed. But again, you live on planet Earth. You go around flashing that much money, or you're holding on to $280,000 for your investors. That should be put in a bank or somewhere safe. I know like people don't like banks because crypto, but like somewhere safe, rather than just holding on to it at your cottage and then revealing your address. So apparently he was beat up. He's probably extremely depressed about losing all the money. So really, really unfortunate, but there's a lot of lessons to learn in there. I think a lot of lessons that like most people already know that you should do, but once you get that rich, I think some people like, you know, think that flashing it around looks cool, and maybe it does look a little cool, but you know, you're tempting people, and it's just not a good idea. So former U.S. Federal Reserve Governor says federal digital currency deserves consideration. So the Fed flip-flopping around on coins again. And now, I did say in numerous videos in the past that the Federal Reserve likes the idea of blockchain, but they do not like Bitcoin, right? Because they can't control Bitcoin, but if they had their own blockchain, the creation of, as it says here, a Fed coin, would be absolutely ideal for a government, but absolutely unideal for the people themselves. It is an absolute polarization in terms of currency. So if a Federal Reserve or a central bank of your country, whoever creates your money, can create a federal coin or some kind of coin, they would be able to make the exact amount of coins that they wanted, burn the amount of coins, add additional coins, control inflation, deflation. Not only that, you would have to go to a bank. So let's say I don't have a bank account and I'm looking to get myself a crypto federal bank account. So you go to a bank and you sign some paperwork. I put in my social, I put in my address, I give them my ID. They take images. They know everything about me, right? And then they give me a key that I would be able to send coins to and from. And I would give that likely to my employer or to other people who want to send me money. When I want to buy something, I would have to, you know, get their public key, just like cryptocurrency today. But the problem is that all these banks have a list of all your public keys, or just your one key, because there wouldn't be much of a reason for a Federal Reserve to use a multiple key system like most cryptos today. As you might notice that your Bitcoin key changes over time. You know, maybe you looked at your wallet one day and it's now something different. Well, that's intended because you could still use those old keys, but let's say I send my key that I've used for a long time to somebody for some kind of fairly illegal activity that I didn't want anybody to know about. It would be very easily traceable back to me, particularly if I sent it to somebody and then they sent somebody and then they sent somebody. It would all be able to trace right back to me. So that's why cryptos typically switch up your public key. So there would be no reason for a Federal Reserve to do that. So Kevin Warsh is an American financier who was governor at the Fed from 2006 to 11. He was a top contender to be its chairman when the Trump administration chose Jerome Powell instead. Warsh said that if he had returned to the Federal Reserve, he would have formed a team to think about creating FedCoin, where we would bring illegal activities into a digital coin. Not that it would supplant and replace cash, but it would be a pretty effective way when the next crisis happens for us to maybe conduct monetary policy. As I'm saying. So Warsh said that most central banks have a view that these crypto assets are clever. Like guys in the garage did it, and it's kind of cool or risky, given the possibility for investor losses and widespread fraud. He reportedly noted that blockchain technology would deliver benefits to the Federal Reserve in terms of payment system it operates. This, according to Warsh, would enable the transfer of trillions of dollars between banks rather than just having to transfer digitally, which we kind of already do, or actual raw bills. So Jerome Powell said that the Fed is actually looking at blockchain as something that may have significant applications in the wholesale payments as part of the economy. So according to Warsh, central banks should treat digital currencies as more than a novelty if people really believe to some extent that cryptocurrency is the future of money. And it certainly is. Blockchain is the future. So that's my thoughts on that, is that blockchain is the future. Is Bitcoin the future? We don't really know, and I don't think anybody knows. It's the brand name right now. That's why everybody's buying it. And I think some people might take this, what I'm saying, as absolute blasphemy, but sooner or later something better is going to come along. It's just always the case. You know, every single technology has been ousted by a new technology or a new version of anything you can think of. There's been an increase in that since the dawn of time, for the most part. So there will be a better currency someday than Bitcoin, and it will rise past Bitcoin, and the market cap and then usage, what that is, of course, nobody knows. So, yeah, Federal Reserve with Bitcoin would be quite scary indeed, because they would know everything you ever do. You know, because currently I could take a $20 bill and I could walk down the street with it, and I could do whatever I wanted with it. I could buy something legal with it. I could do something illegal with it. I could do whatever I wanted with that $20, and nobody would really know about it for the most part. But with and even still, to some degree, with my debit card, you know, it is linked to a bank, but even still, that's not really a blockchain thing. They would have to, you know, query Visa and things like that, so that's a pain. But if it was directly from the Federal Reserve, and I had a direct public key from them that they had written down in any bank or anything like that, then it would be very, very easy for the Federal Reserve to know what all Americans, all people in their country, wherever, were buying and what they were receiving, how much they were making, how much they were receiving, say goodbye to under the table, making money that way. So it'd be tough. Again, it said it did say that it was going to supplement cash and not necessarily replace it, but someday I believe that the old cotton and ink bill will go away. So Bitcoin mining gets popular on college campuses for its free electricity. So a senior at Fairleigh Dickinson University started mining cryptocurrencies in 2012 when it was still relatively easy to profit from the activity. Bitcoin was cheaper than $5 when he and his friends decided to venture into mining. So when I started mining cryptocurrencies and going onward, I would do it in my parents' house and in our own school. Actually, after school, I would leave my laptop in different corners of the school. So Gillard told CNBC, explaining his long-term perspective on the activity led him to spend $4,000 to $5,000 on hardware to build his rigs. So his investment paid off. The value of mined Bitcoin has multiplied several times, and I reached 20,000. In the meantime, he runs 3 rigs in his dorm, 24/7, and another at his parents' house, which result in a couple hundred to $1,000 of returns every couple of months. So mining costs, however, gone through the roof. GPU cards have seen their prices skyrocketing as growing demand wasn't met by a proportionate increase in supply. The additional computing power required to mine Bitcoin is also taking its toll on electricity costs. It's gotten pretty ludicrous now, the amount of money you have to spend to get in. So with Bitcoin standing about half the price of its recorded highs, take advantage of a somewhat vague university's acceptance policy. So they prohibit it through the firewall, but there's no specific language banning the cryptocurrency mining under the current use policy. So Gillard makes use of the free electricity to run his 3 heat-generating mining rigs, compensates with computer fans, and by turning his dorm down room AC on to keep the temperature down, which is an extra cost for the school and an added profit for the cryptocurrency miner. So, this is nothing new. A lot of college students have been doing this. I kind of wish I was doing it when I was in college. I was in college in like 2010 when the price of Bitcoin was likely at like 30 cents. So I would have made quite a lot. But a lot of people back then just really didn't know, too much about it. So I started mining a little after that. But, if those who had actually started mining in 2009 and 2010, like early 2010, those are the people who have made a lot of money. So here's a couple tweets that are really fun. CoinMarketCap removes Bitcoin.com from the Bitcoin listing page. So this is a good day for all true Bitcoin enthusiasts. Thank God, because Bitcoin... So let me get something straight with everybody that's watching. So every time I bash on Bitcoin Cash, I end up getting a lot of feedback from that, or flack, if you will, from people that do defend Bitcoin Cash. And that's okay, because everybody has their own opinion, and you can argue anything you would like. Here's the thing. Let me just set this really, really clear for you guys. So nobody cares that Bitcoin Cash is a fork. Nobody cares that Bitcoin Cash has Bitcoin in the name, although I kind of do a little bit. Most people don't, admittedly. So that's not a problem, right? Because there's Bitcoin Gold, there's like Bitcoin Diamond, there's Bitcoin Private, there's Litecoin Cash or whatever, or the that came out. There's Ethereum Classic. There's just so many forks. Z Classic, all the Z forks and things like that. So many of them. Nobody cares about that. Nobody bashes the other forks. Nobody's freaking out about that. The reason is because Bitcoin.com is owned by Roger Ver, and it's a Bitcoin Cash shill site that puts... although they did fix it now, they used to have Bitcoin and then BCH in brackets next to that, so that you click on BCH instead of the actual Bitcoin that you want to buy. So that it's all extremely fraudulent. It's very manipulative. There's just a lot of bad apples in BCH and all their attacks and the way they go about conducting themselves and all just the BS that they spill. Here's another one. Bitcoin.com. At Bitcoin Twitter. So you would suspect Bitcoin Twitter, they like Bitcoin. No, they don't. This is also owned by Roger Ver, or at least a friend of his. And oftentimes, if you get banned by Roger Ver's Twitter for, shilling or anything like that, or asking him the wrong question, you automatically get banned at Bitcoin. So obviously, he owns this or has some kind of access to this, because you get banned at the same time without ever interacting with at Bitcoin Twitter. So many BTC cult members were triggered by this tweet, and they call it a lie. Can somebody please show the internet where the white paper describing Bitcoin is? The Bitcoin white paper describes BCH. No, it doesn't. It never says Bitcoin Cash in the entire article or in the entire white paper. It says Bitcoin. So who cares? The white paper, when there's absolute truth, Bitcoin Cash is just a fork of Bitcoin. This is true. This is just hard fact. Bitcoin is the Bitcoin, first of its kind, made by Satoshi, who is anonymous. Nobody really knows. It might be a group of people. You just manipulated the new investors. That's why everybody is triggered, because everybody's getting manipulated, because Bitcoin.com is owned. What's the first thing that people that don't know anything about crypto that might be interested in Bitcoin go to? Bitcoin.com. And when you go there, and sometimes it changes, it does changes. So when you go to buy Bitcoin, it says Bitcoin and then BCH in brackets next to that. And then below that, it says Bitcoin Core, BTC in brackets. So nobody knows what Bitcoin Core is because they named it wrong. It should be Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. And so that manipulates people into buying the wrong currency. And trying to take your fork name as the original one doesn't make you right too. Assume you just made an altcoin trying to improve the original, but you don't call the original Bitcoin if it doesn't represent you. And so here, look at this sock puppet here. I respect symbolism and values of BTC, but I love practicability and development potential of BCH. So I'm gonna live with BCH. And then tipped bot. So you tip fake accounts made by yourself. So I don't really know about it. So it's okay to me. It just doesn't stop. Really, I don't see Bitcoin Cash written anywhere. Bitcoin is there though. So it's just amazing. It never ends. Like this whole thing, this whole Twitter is nothing but a Bcash shill. So there's a lot of manipulation going on. Basically, Bcash was entirely made so that the ASIC miners from Jihan Wu could use ASIC Boost, because ASIC Boost is not compatible with SegWit, and SegWit was very necessary for Bitcoin to grow up into the future, right? So they implemented SegWit, and when you have SegWit, you can't use the ASIC Boost technology in their miners, which is essentially an exploit developed by them, and it lets you mine 20 to 30% more efficiently, which gets them $100+ million from mining. So they knew they needed to fork, and at the same time they knew they needed to shill, because just this fork wouldn't make them money unless they shilled it and got the market cap of Bitcoin. So it's all a scam. It's really a fraud. It's a functional scam. The coin works. You can send it back and forth. It works just fine. But it is a true functional scam, and anybody that's holding on to it is a part of that scam, and they might not actually know it. Some might not just care. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as usual, I'll see you guys next time.